2 confirmed fatalities in the Oklahoma City area. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol confirming 2 fatalities on Interstate 40. Eyewitness reports there of a lot of cars overturned and a lot of debris on that road. Oklahoma authorities are advising people to get off the road if you are on the road. In part, that is because of the danger from these storms, but in part it is because of the difficulty of moving around with the flooding there caused by these storms. This massive storm system brought extremely severe storms from Oklahoma City to St. Louis. We are still in the middle of MSNBC's coverage of this storm. Stay with us.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Melissa Rayberger. We continue to following this breaking news out of Oklahoma, the Oklahoma City and Moore area, where a rash of very violent and complicated storm systems have broken out today, bringing hail and flash flooding, multiple tornadoes. Really, we don't even know how many there are just yet, but it's been going on for hours, and they have been extremely violent. One plowed through Oklahoma City, the downtown area, not too long ago, and also down into Moore, Oklahoma, which, as you know, was devastated by that EF5 tornado just 2 weeks ago. We know that there is tornadic activity in Norman, Oklahoma, which is about 50 miles down the road. That is the home to the University of Oklahoma, the Sooners. So that is a college town packed with students and teachers and everybody who works for that facility. So we're watching that closely as well. We also know that St. Louis is now under tornado warnings as well, so we will be keeping a very close eye on St. Louis as well. But back to Oklahoma, unfortunately, there are about 40,000 people without power at this point, and the Oklahoma State Highway Patrol has just confirmed a double fatality in the Oklahoma City area around I-40, which is now closed down. A mother and her baby were in their car, and they were killed as a result of this storm. That is exactly why people do not want you in cars. Unfortunately, a lot of people, for whatever reason, were in cars today. Roads were described as parking lots. We do know that people had plenty of warning. Many people were let off work early today so that they could seek shelter. So we don't know if the people who were in those cars were simply trying to get away for the storm or were trying to get home. It is not clear, and hopefully we will be not be hearing more about fatalities and injuries as a result of that. Joining me on the phone is Mick Cornett, mayor of Oklahoma City. And Mick, you actually rode out the storm in Oklahoma City, is that right?
That's right, Melissa. Right now, we have a lot of people out looking at some of the outlying areas, looking for damage. There is some localized flooding. We got hail. We got a lot of high wind. But the tornado that had originally touched down and apparently killed that mother and child west of Oklahoma City, it apparently pulled up as it went over the Oklahoma City limits. I imagine it had to touch down at least some inside of Oklahoma City limits, but right now I can't verify that it did. All in all, Oklahoma City came across very fortunate tonight. The night's not over, and not every area is going to be as lucky as us, but right now our fingers are still crossed, and we feel like we came out of it about as best as you could have hoped.
Give us a sense on a day like this, when people have been heavily warned that these storm systems are pulling through and can easily spawn violent tornadoes like we saw today. How does Oklahoma City and places like it react? What do people do differently? Do they follow orders? Are there plenty of shelters for them to hide in?
We had about 48 hours warning with this storm. They've been telling us for a couple of days this is going to be a really high-risk area. And I think most people were tuned into the media, around 4 and 5 o'clock, and just when the storm started to stir up in western Oklahoma. And when that happens, they generally can produce tornadic-type activity by the time they reach the Oklahoma City metro area. So I think, at 5 and 6 o'clock, we were quite concerned. This tornado was I think a much smaller and less potent tornado than the one that struck Moore a couple of weeks ago. As I mentioned earlier, the track was a little bit different. It started off a little bit north of that track and then took kind of a sudden turn to the southeast and actually headed for the Moore and Norman area, much of the same area that had received the damage earlier. But this tornado was nothing like the last one.
Okay, we're looking at pictures from earlier, and we see an absolutely enormous wall cloud that spawns this giant tornado that we were actually just talking about. Mick, where did you ride it out? Were you at City Hall?
I was not. I live downtown, and when it approached the city, I went down into the basement area of my apartment building. and I was down there for about 10 or 15 minutes and then came back up. We were, using cell phones. You can monitor television with live streaming, and I was able to come back up once I was fairly certain that at least that one storm cell had passed us by. And then I came up here to see if there's any more developing, and haven't seen anything yet. I mean, the night's not over, but it feels like it's over for Oklahoma City for the night. But we still got our eye on the western sky, and we still got the media turned on.
Can you give people a sense who are not familiar with this? Obviously, it looks absolutely terrifying, and it is. Can you give people a sense of what it is like to be in a shelter and feeling that storm roll overhead?
Well, most people stay secure in their homes and don't seek public shelters. I happen to live in a multi-tenant building, so I was, gathered around with a few other people who happen to be downtown. But, in Oklahoma City, you learn to live with the concerns of tornadoes, but it doesn't affect your day-to-day life. But you keep an eye on it, and then, if you get 15 or 30 minutes away and it appears that something might be imminent, you will seek shelter, knowing that in a few minutes it will have moved on past. And if you follow the directions, if you get to the lowest level of your house, if you get into an interior room, you're going to be fine 999 times out of 1,000. That tornado that hit us 2 weeks ago was an extremely rare tornado for several reasons. It was big, it was violent, it came during the daytime, and it was also slow moving. That was an extremely unusual and dangerous storm. The vast majority of the time that we're dealing with tornadic activity, it's on a much lesser level. I think a lot of us are still spooked, though, because of the one 2 weeks ago. What
are you hearing at this point in the way of damage, not just in Oklahoma City, but in the surrounding areas?
I don't have many reports, but I got a feeling that in the more Norman area, they probably have some damage, and I think they definitely do out in the El Reno area, which is west of Oklahoma City. That's where it crossed I-40, and I think you had some trucks and cars that were, just passing along that major thoroughfare, and they probably got thumped over. We're going to have some localized flooding and some hail and some straight-line winds, and there's still some power outages. But at this point, I can't verify any significant damage in Oklahoma City, though we're still looking into it.
Are you surprised that so many people were in their cars? Aside from the mother and child who tragically were killed today, they were in their car along I-40. We also have the Weather Channel's Mike Bettis, whose car is destroyed because he wasn't able to get out of the way in time. He's fine, thank God. We also heard a report of the hood of a truck being ripped right off by a storm. Why are so many people on the roads?
Yeah, I was surprised by that, and it came through the metro area 6:30, 7 o'clock time frame. So people shouldn't have been coming home from work at that time of day. I'm wondering if the tornadoes from a couple of weeks ago didn't frighten people so badly that this time they were taking no chances and were trying to evade it by car. That's a very unwise thing to do, because the absolute worst place you can be during a tornado is in your car. And if I'm right with that kind of guesstimation about why the interstates got so packed with cars, I hope people have learned their lesson. Because you want to be inside a building, preferably on the low as you can get if you can't get into a basement.
Okay, Oklahoma City Mayor Mick Cornett, thank you. I'm glad that you're doing well and that your city fared well today. Also, thanks for being on with us.
Thanks for your coverage, Melissa.
We are also hearing that about 40,000 people are without power. That includes the Will Rogers World Airport, where thousands hunkered down in a tunnel underneath that airport as the storm rolled through earlier. Let's go to NBC meteorologist Dylan Dreyer for a look back at the storms that we saw earlier today, and also a look at what we're going to see the rest of this night. Dylan?
Well, we are going to see through the rest of the night the chance of very strong thunderstorms, but that threat, especially in Oklahoma, of tornadoes, very powerful tornadoes, is lessening at this point. I want to show you this map here. It doesn't look like much, but the red boxes indicate areas where we do still have tornado watches in effect. And you can see they're mostly through eastern Missouri and down through areas across central and southern Illinois. And you see the filled in red boxes across southwestern Illinois. we are going to see that's where our severe thunderstorm warnings are right now. Now, we are going to see the chance of the possibly seeing still some of these stronger storms and heavy torrential downpours. We have flood warnings up and down the Mississippi and Missouri rivers, and there is a pretty good chance that we are going to see flash flooding with these torrential downpours. And you can see areas like central Missouri and southwestern Illinois where we do have the threat of torrential downpours. But a closer look at Oklahoma itself, there's more Oklahoma and Norman just south of that, and Shawnee, where we did have our most recent tornado warning issued. Those have been let to expire. Still torrential downpours. We still have frequent cloud to ground lightning and stronger winds within these storms, but the tornado warnings themselves have been let go after a very busy several hours with that first tornado warning just west of El Reno several hours ago. But those now are starting to weaken. Conditions are getting more favorable for things to become more stable, and we're losing that threat and the potential of severe storms because we've lost a lot of the sunshine, obviously, too, as we get closer to nighttime now, and that helps the atmosphere to become more and more stable, and we do see improvements as far as the severity of these storms. So we will still see strong storms throughout the night, but the threat of tornadoes certainly going down at this point.
Well, this really has been a very unique day. I mean, we've got massive flooding. We had all different sizes of hail, lots and lots of rain, and especially that one that you and I were watching this afternoon. There was so much rain wrapped around it that you couldn't even see the actual tornado itself. But it was at least a half a mile wide while we were looking at it hours ago. In this tornado, I learned something new today. It had several vortexes involved. Can you explain, is that rare?
You know, you need a very, very strong storm to produce a multi-vortex system. And basically what that is, you know, you see the videos and you see the live shots of tornadoes that come down from the cloud. Those funnel clouds reach the ground and you have your typical tornado, and then it goes back up. But the situation we saw today was this massive thunderstorm that produced several tornadoes. And from these tornadoes, it was so big, a mile wide in diameter, that you had almost smaller tornadoes, mini tornadoes circling within the larger tornado itself. So instead of just that one vortex, you had multiple vortices, and vortex is just another word for that funnel cloud. So when we're talking about multiple funnel clouds, it shows you just how big the original tornado was, the original funnel cloud was, to produce multiple tornadoes within that system.
I know, that just sounds so menacing.
And it was.
Yeah,
as we
absolutely. Dylan, thank you. We are going to Kelly Kane of Oklahoma Emergency Services, who is, I believe, on the phone with us. Can you hear me, Kelly?
I can hear you.
Thank you for being on with us. I know it's been a very busy day for you. Tell us kind of a roundup of how the state fared today and what we expect to see from the rest of the night.
Well, I hate to say it, but we still don't know exactly how the state fared right now. We know that there are still storms moving through the state, and we still have a lot of hail, a lot of rain going on out there. The tornadoes touched down in El Reno, in Oklahoma City, in some other areas in Norman, but we haven't had a chance yet to assess the damage. So we know there's damage out there, but right now the main story is heavy flooding in central Oklahoma, and also just really bad situation with the roads being backed up. A lot of people out there on the roads, which can be very dangerous.
I'm sure that is very frustrating for you, because I know that people are warned nonstop to not get on the road, to not be in their car. Is that frustrating for you?
No, it's just a safety concern. We just want to make sure that people aren't in the path of any additional storms that may pass through. We know that these storms may continue throughout the night, and so we just really want to encourage people to try to get off the roads if possible and get to a safe place and you know, take shelter if needed.
Can you give us an idea of your job with emergency services on a day like this? What's the first thing you do in your greatest concern?
Well, right now at the State Emergency Operations Center, we are working to coordinate available resources. So we're working with local jurisdictions across the state who have available task forces, search and rescue teams,
Okay.
And other types of resources that are available when these local communities that
Okay.
get hit by storms need them.
Kelly, I need to move on, but Kelly Kane of Oklahoma Emergency Services, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. Let's go to NBC's Janet Shamlian, who rode out the storm at Will Rogers Airport, hunkered underground, I believe, with several other people. You are in downtown now, is that right, Janet?
Yeah, we made our way from the airport to downtown, which was a harrowing trip in and of itself because, as your previous guest mentioned, there is substantial flooding. We almost couldn't get out of the airport. There's just a lot of water. There's debris on the roads, and there's no power near the airport anyway. We've made our way to downtown where there is power. Very few people are on the roads where we were. The skies are still very ominous, and I imagine by now the airport may be close to releasing people. I just got a new alert that we are under severe thunderstorm warning. But at one point, Melissa, 1,200 or so people in that shelter, which is a tunnel essentially that runs from the airport to the parking garage. I was in the airport when the sirens went off, and people very quickly went to this underground facility, which serves as a shelter. Everyone from pilots to passengers, TSA folks, and including people who knew of the shelter underneath the airport. People weren't traveling. They drove to the airport to be able to go underground. So we saw a lot of people who had no reason really to be there except that they wanted
interesting.
to be safe.
So they used that as their shelter. That's where they decided to go. That is interesting. Actually, Janet, I want to point out the fact that we are showing some pictures of severe flooding, and they are stunning. I mean, we're actually seeing cars underwater.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say we did what everybody tells you not to do today in order to be broadcasting live, which was, a small rental car driving through, 2 feet plus of water. Don't recommend doing that again, and I wouldn't. But it's all over the place.
Well, there were multiple threats today. I mean, from the tornado itself, straight line winds, powerful straight line winds, hail, and all of this flooding. I mean, this has really been an extraordinary weather event today.
There's a lot of debris down, trees. We saw railroad tracks that had something strewn over the tracks. And again, people are not really out at this point. The sky is kind of a very ominous, gray and then light, how it often looks after a storm. And but we're still getting heavy rain. We had hail for a while. It's really a bad situation.
Janet, stay with me because we want to show the first pictures out of St. Louis that is under a tornado warning at this moment. We are seeing some pictures of damage there. It's dark, but you can make out that there has been some damage to it. It looks like a home. The house that has debris in the front yard, whether it's from that house or another one, we don't know. So severe weather has in fact touched down in St. Louis today. Janet, I want to go back to your experience this afternoon. It must have been a little bit scary, even as a seasoned journalist, to be herded underground like that.
Yeah,
tell me how people handled it.
I have to say, people were fairly calm. Not entirely, but you always hear go underground, and so this was as underground as you get. I mean, and it's a corridor about, a third of a mile long, so it can accommodate plenty of people. It's not that wide. The airport folks did a phenomenal job. A man on a megaphone came through and said, look, there are two systems. We think we are in the direct path of one. We're going to be under warnings for both of them. At one point they said, okay, this is it. Everybody put your hands over your head and move away from what few windows there were down there. And we felt, you could feel the force of the wind. We lost power down there temporarily, but for the most part, people kept calm. I think there was, everyone was trying to use their cell phone, and of course that was unsuccessful for the most part. It was a new experience for me. I'm more used to hurricanes, and I felt safe down there, but it's not an experience you want to do often.
We just saw a picture of baseball-sized hail. It was actually compared to a baseball, and that will kill you. It will damage your home. It will break windows, and if you're out and about in it, that hail can severely injure a person.
I think the concern. Go on.
No, go ahead.
Well, just from the short trip that we took from the airport to try to get downtown, the jogging back and forth, trying to avoid the trees and parts of signs and just scattered debris and litter that is all over the place, and with no one else on the road, that was challenging for us. As soon as everyone gets in their vehicles or tries to get out of the airport, I mean, it's going to put things at a standstill all over the city.
It's definitely heartening to know that clearly the airport personnel have been highly trained on this. And when you consider, we're not talking about people who are used to this threat. People are flying in and out and would have no idea what to do. So the fact that the airport is so prepared to handle people, to organize people, to know where to bring them, it really is heartening. Because I would imagine that a lot of people are from out of town and had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, exactly. They came through at one point and said, we've got limited cold water. What children or babies need some cold water right now? And there was kind of a team spirit down there. I did sense, after an hour and a half or so, nerves were a little frayed and people were anxious to get out of there. But we were still under a tornado warning. And we stayed in there until another teammate of mine, Jack Davis, said, look, I just went up to the parking garage and it's starting to flood. We may not get out of here. So at that point, we made a decision to try to leave and head back downtown, which is our present location outside the Chesapeake Auditorium.
Janet Shamlian, thank you so much for joining us here tonight, and good luck as you continue to follow the storm.
Thank you.
We want to show you some pictures. There were a number of sporting events going on in the Oklahoma City area today. Obviously, they've been canceled, but Oklahoma City is home to the College Softball World Series. And as you can see here, all these young women were herded into what looks, hopefully, is an extremely safe place, hopefully underground. But all these women are from around the country and are there to compete in the Softball World Series. And their day did not go as planned, obviously. So let's go to Betsy Randolph of the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, and I would imagine that you are all very busy today.
Let me tell you, it has been absolutely chaotic. The storms that touched down were so widespread. They just essentially tracked along I-40. They came through the Oklahoma City metro area and then went south on I-35. We had multiple crashes, multiple overturned vehicles, including some semis and trailers. We know a mother and a baby were killed tonight as they traveled along Interstate 40. Just a heartbreaking situation tonight, and we're still trying to assess the damage and assess how many people have been affected tonight from the storm.
I would imagine it is a major concern for you, not only trying to get word out to the people who are in your state and are familiar with days like this. I would imagine it's terrifying in your business, knowing that people might just be driving through and don't know to listen to the weather and don't know what that storm up ahead really is.
Yeah, you're exactly right. What some people, if they've never been to the Plain States, if they've never been through Oklahoma, they think that it may just simply be rain. And as they drive into the storm, if it's unable for us to stop all of the traffic on the interstate, and our troopers were quick to get out there and shut the interstate down, but as you can imagine, all the various entrance ramps from city streets, and you're right, if somebody is traveling through and they don't know and they aren't listening, they could be listening to their own music and not even to a radio and not know that this is a tornado that they're driving into. And it is a heartbreaking situation. It's one of those situations where we feel very reactionary because we're at mercy to the weather. And these tornadoes are so dangerous and so deadly. And when a tornado like this comes through, and it's multiple tornadoes that are so widespread, we're very vulnerable. We do tell our drivers, folks in Oklahoma and folks that are just driving through, obviously right now Interstate 40 and Interstate 35 are all shut down. We've got multiple power lines down on the interstate, high water in some areas that are making the roads impassable, and then the multiple crashes that we're still trying to get to assess and get the people that are injured into different various medical facilities.
Which, it needs to be said that this presents a great risk to your patrol officers.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got multiple troopers tonight, some of which have been involved in some of that large hail that we were talking about. Their units were damaged. Some of them had to seek shelter as they were out assisting people on crashes, as some of the tornadoes would then, they were very sporadic in the way that they would track, where we would thought that it had gone ahead and moved off to the east, and then a storm would present itself behind us, and we've had troopers that had to seek shelter. Some of them, their vehicles were stuck in the mud, some were stuck in high water, and, you know, so it's a deadly situation for them as well. But this is what we sign on to do. We are first responders, and our hearts are definitely broken at the loss of life tonight, and our thoughts and prayers are definitely with those victims and their families. But we really want folks to know that if you're on the interstate and you drive into something that appears to be a tornado, we ask you to get your vehicle off the roadway and then abandon your car. I know that sounds crazy, but the truth of the matter is that you cannot ride out a tornado inside a vehicle. You'll get sucked out of your vehicle, out of the window, out of even your seatbelt. We ask people, do not seek shelter under an elevated structure, because that essentially becomes a wind tunnel. Your body will become a pincushion for flying debris, and you're going to get sucked out of that elevated structure. The higher you are, the more dangerous it is. So we ask people to get into a ditch, lay your body into a low-lying area. You're not going to have any cover from the hail, but your body will be less likely to be sucked up in a tornado if you're in a low-lying area such as a ditch.
That was actually my next question. That would be terrifying, but I guess as the absolute last resort, that's what you do. Betsy Randolph of the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you.
KFR's Latasha Givens reported from a convenience store in Oklahoma City just a few minutes ago. Here's that.
Earlier, you said one of the major highways, maybe it was I-40, it looks like a demolition derby area out there at one point.
Well, it sure does, Kev. There are cars everywhere, and I have an unfortunate bit of information to pass along. There has been a confirmed double fatality. A white Pontiac, Montana SUV was thrown off the interstate upside down, and we know that a mother and her baby were both killed in this accident. The Highway Patrol has just removed the victims. Traffic out here is at a standstill in the eastbound lanes of I-40, just to the west of Banner Road, and it is absolute chaos out here. Cars are, again, at a standstill. There are semis that are turned over. The truck stop, or the truck checkpoint where semis come through the weigh station, was decimated. There are some farms out here that have been destroyed. There is debris all over the interstate. Trees have been split in half. There's a building, and I'm not sure what it is. It looks like they sell some sort of industrial equipment. It says performance something, but half the building has been sort of torn away, so I can't make out the entire sign. But a lot of destruction out here today. And again, tragically, I tell you, with a heavy heart, we had a double fatality. A mom and her baby killed in this accident as the car was flipped off the interstate about an hour ago.
Oh, man. I just hate hearing that.
Thank you, Lance.
Latasha Givens is out there for us. Latasha.
Well, Kevin and Meg, I'm still live at the On-Q on 89th and Penn, and there are about 100 people right here in the parking lot, some in the store, who ran to this place for cover. It was one of the few places in the area that still had power, and as you can see, this power is still flickering. I want to show you how scared people are. If you take a look behind me, you can see this door. We're told the store closed, like many other businesses in the area, and the door was locked. People were so afraid. Someone actually busted out the glass. It's been cleaned up in recent minutes, and the manager here has been very accommodating. They actually called employees in, and they're allowing people to buy some necessary items because people are just planning to camp out here because they don't want to go back out in the storm. They're a little concerned about which direction it's changing because that happens so rapidly. So if you take a look over here, you can see all the cars parked here. Some people getting gas, some people just here waiting out the storm. I talked to one family who came here from Yukon. They had 5 people and 7 dogs in this small little car. That was the only way they could get from Yukon all the way here trying to ride out that storm. I've talked to other people who are here with their children, and they're basically just going to stay here for dinner time. They're buying food inside the convenience store, and they're just not quite sure what to do. We're going to stay here and gather some more details and talk to more people. Back to you guys in the studio.
That has been damaged. So you look around behind you, and what do you see? You see trees down.
Yeah.
You see other roofs off.
Yeah.
What will you do about all this damage, sir?
Well, just clean it up and get it fixed and put back.
How long have you lived here?
I've been here 10 years.
10 years.
In April.
And have you been just driving around looking at other damage?
No.
You've been just
here? We
here?
were down at a friend's of ours' house on Hempside Road and heard about it, and we just came right home.
You, in fact, came up to us, Mr. Weiss, when you saw Scott Connell. Scott, you have been driving around this area. This is actually home for you.
Yeah, it's very close. I don't live very far from here at all, and so I just drove down the street just to see what I would see. And what I've seen has been pretty dramatic. Obviously, you see the roof is gone. And it's not only just here in the yard. That debris stretches across the street. Whitmore Country Club is across the street. There's debris.